Now, his drawings captured some of the most harrowing experiences faced by soldiers and prisoners in the Second World War. This week, the work of the late Somerset artist Ted Milligan is being displayed at an exhibition in Russia. It's on show in St. Petersburg, alongside pieces by a Russian soldier whose life followed a very similar path. After the war, Ted became an architect and would have been 96 this year. Now, I've spoken to his friend, the Taunton artist Jon England, who's been in Russia to see the exhibition.
Ted was a Lancaster bomb aimer with 49 Squadron during the Second World War when he was shot down on his first mission and became a prisoner of war. So having been carried all the way east to Stalag 7 at Bangkok, where he became a prisoner, he started to draw and paint and make artworks and even study for the first part of his RIBA architecture qualification.
It's quite an incredible story. I suppose at some point, if you're in a situation like that and there's all that sort of a traumatic experience going on around you, it's quite good to have something to focus on, and it sounds like he poured everything into his art.
Yeah, absolutely he did. All of his diaries and his art are a kind of an exercise in positive mental attitude, and he kind of became powerless to affect the war, so all he could really do was record his experience and look to the future, which he was making designs for his fantasy kind of country home in the future, and speculating on what urban design would be post-war. So he was drawing tower blocks 10, 20 years before they were built.
You need a great imagination for that, and that's something that he'll have had regardless of where he was, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was always a kind of frustrated artist. He noted in his diary when Adrian Heath, the subsequently famous abstract painter, arrived in the same camp as him, that he was from the Slade School of Art, and he would have loved to have had his opportunity to study. So it was something he always wanted to do. And his prisoner of war identity card, he listed his profession as architect, even though he'd never trained at all up until that point.
Let's talk more about the exhibition and those parallels between Ted's life and that of Pavel Afanin, a Russian architect who was also experiencing World War II at the time.
Yeah, well, they were born within just about a year of each other and died within a year. And towards the end of the war, when Ted was being marched westwards back towards Berlin because of the Russian advance, the Germans were blowing up the bridges to try and slow down the Russians, and then Pavel's engineer battalion were rebuilding those crossings. So they were moving through the same landscapes, just days apart at times, but they both waited until they were in their late 80s before they really started to talk about their wartime experiences. So it was really only in the last couple of years of each of their lives that their wartime work, really came to light.
And your friendship with Jon, has that helped you with your art at all?
Yeah, absolutely. When we worked together, we both made new work. Ted made about 30 drawings based on his memory of those marches, and I made my own interpretation, responding to his pieces of his experiences. I made my own pieces of work as well. The whole, experiencing the culture out here and everything else, it all feeds into the artworks that I make.
Do you worry that artworks such as Jon's, and I'm going to call it documentational art for want of a better phrase, do you worry that sort of thing is going to disappear because everybody has a mobile phone now and they can take a picture of these things?
I don't know. Yeah, obviously the context in which any work is created now is very different. But, when I make my own artwork, I'm always using the materials I use to make my work are about creating a kind of tangible connection to that kind of remote experience that I can't imagine, because it has an authenticity and a resonance that a digital image can't have. And I think, with their archive of work, there's something about the tangibility of those paintings and drawings and the connection to the time and place that they were made, which I don't think a digital image can can ever compare with.
And finally, how's this exhibition in Russia being received?
Yeah, it's been phenomenal, really. The turnout was amazing yesterday. Massive amounts of press coverage here. So it's all a bit awe-inspiring, really.